Titans, good to see you. Well, I wish I could see you, but this is the best I can do. Today, I want you to take a look at the next few images, and I want you to come up with what you think they all have in common. So what'd you guess? Any idea what it is? Well, let me tell you, it has to do with a process called passive transport. Now, I was introduced to this concept when I was very little, and here's me with my first dog. I was running through a field of wildflowers in my flip-flops, and I stepped on a bee, and it stung me. And when we got back home, my stepmom had me soak my foot in salt water. And I was like, well, what's that all about? And then there was every time I had a sore throat, it was always gargle with salt water. And I was like, oh, that's the worst thing ever. But did it work? And the answer is yes. And the reason why this concept works is because of a term called osmosis. Now, your body is always trying to maintain homeostasis. We learned about this months ago. And homeostasis is a concept where your body is in equilibrium. There's equal amounts of things where they're supposed to be. And when your cells are made of 70% water, which they are right around there, depending on the cell, your cell is always trying to maintain that 70% water. Now, if you get stung by a bee or you have swelling in your throat, your tissues are swelled up. And so you need to have a remedy that's going to allow something to draw the excess water out of the swelling. So in order to totally understand this concept, you need to understand the three different types of passive transport. So the first kind is osmosis, and that's what a good chunk of our lesson is today. Osmosis is the movement of water from an area of high concentration to low concentration in a cell. The easiest way is just to show you with numbers. Not that I'm a math person or anything, I'm not stepping on Mrs. Yeager's toes, but I think it's easiest when you can represent these with numbers. So let's imagine that this is a cell, and your cell is 70% water. So let's say you put that cell in pure water, and that water is 100% water. Which way is water going to move? It's going to move from high to low concentration. So you're going to have water enter into that cell and make it swell up. So is it a good idea to get home and soak your swelled foot in pure water, like taking a bath? Heck no, that's not going to help you at all. It's actually going to cause your skin to swell up even more. So if you've ever taken a bath or you've been in a pool for too long, you notice your fingers get wrinkled. It's not that they're losing water, they've actually gained water and they have plumped up. So that's what happens when you put your skin in pure water. Now, if you were to put your skin into water that was also 70%, would there be any net movement? Nope. Your skin would pretty much stay the same. So this is going to be any type of saline solution. This is what they would put in if they gave you an IV. If you were in the hospital, they would give you a solution that was similar to the body chemistry that you have. So you didn't have like exploding cells in your blood, which is a really important concept, right? So what my stepmom always recommended I do was soak my foot or gargle my sore throat in a saltwater solution. So let's imagine now that this solution, the saltwater solution, is 50% water and 50% salt. So now what's going to happen is there's higher water inside the cell than there is outside the cell. And so water moves out. So my stepmom was right. Gargling with salt water totally worked. So these are concepts that are explained in osmosis. There's also diffusion. And I always think of this for those of you that sat next to Hercules or Bearded Joe's cages, the ones of you that sat, and you can see him in the background, he's saying hi. Those of you that sat closest to the cage, if they were to have a bowel movement in the cage, you were the first to know. And this concept is diffusion. So molecules are going to move from an area where there's a lot of them to an area where there's less of them. And they're going to continue to move until equilibrium is achieved. This happens in the cell too. Sometimes there are molecules like ions or salt or oxygen or carbon dioxide, and they are going to go right through the cell membrane. Now, both in osmosis and diffusion, both water and these really tiny molecules are going to move right through the fatty heads and tails. It's not going to take any energy at all. It just happens in order to maintain equilibrium. But not everything that goes in and out of the cell is small. Sometimes you have larger molecules like glucose. Glucose is a little bit bigger, so are amino acids, and those are the building blocks of protein. They're going to require a little extra help. So in these molecules, there's a carrier protein. The larger protein that sits through that cell membrane is going to kind of grab onto them, bind to them, and pull them in or push them out of the cell, depending on which way it needs to move. Again, these are moving from an area of high to low concentration, so no extra energy is needed. These are the three different types of passive transport. Now, there are other kinds of transports too. Sometimes you have extremely large molecules that need to move in or out of the cell, like starches or big fats or big proteins. In this case, the cell is going to form a vesicle around it, and this either happens in the endoplasmic reticulum or in the Golgi complex. And this vesicle will then move, it's going to fuse with the cell membrane and out the macromolecules. In endocytosis, that's when we are going to bring those molecules into the cell. Now, when we looked at amoeba, we saw that amoeba would surround whatever it wanted to eat with its pseudopods and engulf it, and then eventually form its own vesicle and bring it into its cell. That's a process of endocytosis. So we see this happening in protists and other organisms as well, in order to take big things in or remove things from the cell. These are the major concepts of passive transport. And that's what I really want you to focus on. Now, is this the case in every single case in the body? No, it's not. It gets a lot more complicated than this. There is a process called active transport, and in active transport in the muscles, it actually works the opposite way. But that's not something I want you to focus on until 10th grade. For our focus, I want you to focus on passive transport. That is the movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to low concentration in the cell in order to maintain homeostasis to achieve equilibrium. Hopefully that helps. If you move forward after this little wee video, you're going to see a whole bunch of notes, and then you're going to be creating a paper slide for me in order to demonstrate your knowledge. Good luck.